And yet, every one of us, no matter how grounded we are in our faith or kind of where we are in that journey, we still wrestle with that question of why. Why does suffering exist? If God is good, why is there so much pain? And to find peace, I think we've got to get to the bottom of that question in our head. We need some head knowledge with this, and we need to get to the bottom of it in our hearts. We've got to do the wrestling of it. Here's the first thing I want you to think about relative to what we endure in this life. Suffering did not come about because of God. Suffering, sin, and the failures that you and I have to live through the midst of, they came about because of us, not because of Him. Genesis 1:31 tells us that God created the world. And when it says He created the world, it says not just that the world God created was good. If you read the Bible, it says it was very good. It was very good. It was perfect. And God dwelt among men. He walked with Adam and Eve in the garden. Think about that. And then we, as humanity, in our sin, by our choices, we wrecked it. So when humanity turned from God, sin entered and suffering began. That's how it went down. It may seem like a convenient answer, but it's far from convenient. It's just true. And it's what we're living now that we wrestle here on the other side of those choices and our own choices to sin, because all of us have. Sin entered, and terrible things that God never designed to be a part of our life, like violence and betrayal, and natural disasters like disease and again, natural disasters. These things were entered in. As C.S. Lewis said, when we told God to shove off, He partially honored that choice, and the world was cursed. But the good news is for you and me is that God never stopped loving us. He never stopped loving us. And here's the thing. If I were God, and I'm not, thankfully, but if I were God and I were to create humanity, I were to create children that were made in my likeness, and I was going to give them free will, and they had a choice to follow me, to walk with me, to come to know me, and instead they sinned against me and rejected me, I would say, well, time to blow that whole thing up. I'm done with that experiment. That didn't work. And listen, the God of the universe who made you, look right at me, the God of the universe that made you could have done exactly that, and He would have been well within His rights to do so. But instead, because of His unbelievable love for you, His care, His concern, His desire for you to come and know Him, and as the Bible teaches, that His desire is that no one would perish outside of a relationship with Him. Because of that immense desire for you, He solved your problem by sacrificing Himself, by sending His only Son. That's what He did to fix our problem. He didn't have to do that, but He did it. The other thing I'd have us really draw in on when we think about suffering is that God draws near us when we suffer. Nearly everyone in this room has experienced that, where when you think back over the times of your life where you've kind of been the most knocked down or you faced the hardest challenges, you have, when you've sought God, you have felt His presence. You have been led into His guidance. You have been granted His peace. Now, you might have had a wrestling match to get there, but when you think back over the span of your life, everyone in this room can tell those stories about in those times of testing, God was near. In those times of my brokenness, God was near. Now, here's the truth. He was always near. But the Bible makes clear in Psalm 34:18 that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. So I guess even more so, God makes his presence felt in the midst of our suffering. When we suffer, what humans like to do, we don't maybe like to do it, but we do it whether we'd admit it or not. Oftentimes when we suffer, we build a wall. We build a wall between us and God, and we put up this sort of block. I don't know why we think that will protect us, but we do this in our anger and our frustration. And I think some of that's human nature. But what God does to our wall is sort of treated like a drawbridge, right? Think about a medieval castle. He takes that wall and he lowers it. And he turns what is a wall, what was a defense, what was a block, and he turns it into a bridge. And across that bridge of our suffering, God will be near. C.S. Lewis also wrote, most famously, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts to us in our pain. In our darkest moments, God's presence is loudest, and it is there, I believe, that we find that peace that surpasses our circumstances. Matt Chandler, a preacher in Texas, tells a story about a young man in their congregation, 10-year-old young boy named Caleb, that's in the middle of a battle against leukemia. One night recently in the hospital, during one of those painful procedures that he was having to go through, he asked his mother to play the song, "Good, Good Father." Most of you know it. And as the needles were piercing his body, he was singing through tears, "You're a good, good father, and I'm loved by you." And his voice in that moment, as the story is recounted, brought peace to his parents, a peace that they could not explain, and a peace to young Caleb that would boggle the mind of an unbeliever.